afternoon. I'm Dr. Raul A. Mora, and I welcome you to our presentation, Second Language Literacies as Spaces for Language Appropriation and Community Building in the City. Today, we will share our journey around Medellin, Colombia, and what we have learned about how our fellow citizens and we keep using all the languages in our city to create a new way to understand it, to build new communities, and to ultimately reinvent the city through languaging. I will now let the rest of our team, these young and very talented scholars, walk with you through our research.
This study is part of an ongoing inquiry about second language literacies in the city, and it draws from ideas of new literacy studies about the city, is the cornerstone of our conceptual framework to understand how the city, in its condition of non-human, redefines the traditional concepts of reading and writing, providing new forms of communication and interpretation of the daily interactions with its surroundings. Our framework to study the city as literacy practice explores how the city and those around it operate together to use languages to reconfigure social relations and even the use of spaces around the city. We explore the construction of communities through language as part of a series of communicative resources linked to other languages in the area, based on the concept of polylanguaging, as well as translanguaging. We explore these communities as interconnected superdiversities and spread across the city.
The data sources from our study include participant observations by attending conversation clubs and local events like trivia nights, interviews with members of the different communities in our routes, for example, language exchange organizers, fan groups members and leaders, comic shop owners, etc., and interpretative notes from all researchers related to our fieldwork, ethnography field notes and reports and artifacts.
Our data analysis includes three main categories, and for this paper we focused on two. A. Second language appropriation and the process of mastering the language within a larger social purpose. And B. Belongingness and how language use and practice actually becomes part of the members' identity, not just as fans, but as multilingual citizens.
In the case of language exchange, we obtained the results by observing and partaking in conversation clubs, and we learned how the interactions across different languages created a relaxed atmosphere where attendants would come together and practice their language without the pressure of making mistakes or being laughed at and getting a bad grade.
As to fandom and comics, our data indicates that regardless of one's interests, fans found connections between their topics of interest and their lives that eventually led them to dig deeper about what had caught their eye. Thanks to the exposure to media content in other languages, the appropriation was rather organic. To delve deeper into content on social media and websites, and to understand what artists posted on social networks and said in their interviews.
Another finding was the different literacy practices they engaged in via second languages encouraged participants in language exchange events, fan clubs, and comics communities to develop a sense of identity and belongingness. We noticed that, for example, in language exchange events, attendants were willing to give each other feedback in the languages they were stronger, as they all realized they could complement their learning. In the case of online communities, we also observed how group administrators would be willing to lend a hand to those just learning the languages or new members so they would feel comfortable and identify with the community.